A vague disclaimer is no one's friend. This podcast will look at episodes in relation to Buffy and Angel as a whole, and therefore contains spoilers for the entirety of both series. If you haven't seen all of Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel the series, go and watch them before you listen to this. Remember, you've been warned.
The hardest thing in this world is to live in it.
That's why there's us, champions. We live as though the world were as it should be, to show it what it can be.
The Earth is definitely doomed.
It's Tuesday, so it must be time to return to the Hellmouth. We're going through the Buffyverse episode by episode and a look back at Joss Whedon's iconic shows. I'm Emcee, and I'm here with...
Hey, it's Andie.
This is David.
Hi, this is Jan.
And I'm Logan.
This week we are talking about Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, which is episode 16 of season 2. It was written by Marty Noxon and directed by James A. Contner. Oh, Marty.
Yeah, Marty. Okay, so I oddly like this episode, the back half of this episode, even though it's super problematic. There's some fun stuff in it, but it's so problematic, but once it hits all the girls going after Xander, even though it's amazingly problematic, there's some fun acting things in this that's always made me kind of like...
I was going to say, there's some really good performances from people in this.
And, you know...
Yeah, and a couple of, like, little cute shticks, but...
But otherwise, yeah, I'm...
Hot mess.
I think this is one of the worst episodes to do for this kind of show, because it's an okay episode to just watch, but it stands up to absolutely no scrutiny.
Yeah, I have very few notes about it. Logan is making a face.
Oh, I'm not a big fan of Xander's magic roofie.
Yeah, no, we will get into this. I think one of the most important things to mention about this episode, which kind of, when you hear it, you'll go, oh, okay. This episode was written in 4 days because originally Passion was in this episode slot. But then Sarah got the opportunity to host Saturday Night Live.
Right.
So they needed to write her out for half the episode. And so it's like, okay, we've got to come up with an episode in 4 days in which our title character is not in it for half the episode.
Wasn't it basically like we need to find a way to turn Michelle into a rat so we can... I mean, that's like the tentpole of the episode, was they needed her as a rat so she wasn't in the show.
They needed some way to get Buffy out of the episode. Yeah.
Well, I mean, at least the rat thing sets up the fact that Amy can turn people into rats later on when she accidentally turns herself into one. So besides that, you know... Again, this episode is really fun to watch because there's a lot of cool slapstick But... yeah, analyzing it, I'm sort of like, bad roofie Xander?
Well, to start at the very beginning of this episode, we have Buffy and Xander in the graveyard, looking over that frickin' ugly-ass necklace. I'm sorry, that necklace is really ugly.
It's tacky as hell, yeah.
It's just a big, giant, chunky heart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like
I mean, like,
one.
It's exactly what I expect somebody like Xander to pick out for his first girlfriend. It's just like, look at how big this heart is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just there's no decoration on it. It's just a big ass heart. So
yeah, I mean, I guess
I don't like it.
I guess you could sort of say it's endearing because, you know, it's like, oh, look, Xander's trying really hard and he has no taste and he doesn't know what girls like and but I don't know.
I mean, the props department picked an ugly ass necklace that Xander would give to her. So I don't, you know what I mean? It's ugly, it's tacky looking. I have some stuff in my old jewelry box that's probably about as ugly and tacky looking from the 90s, from boyfriends that gave me shit for Valentine's Day.
I feel really bad for Cordelia. Like, Cordelia is the person that I have the most sympathy for in this episode. I feel like she's the one who actually goes on the character journey in this episode.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, when you hear Buffy talking about Cordelia at the beginning of this episode, and when you see what happens with the Cordettes later on, I really understand why Cordelia moved to LA and just never contacted anybody ever again.
Super duper.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I mean, she goes on a character journey, but at the same time, she's half sidelined. Like, you see the journey, but it's really minimal compared to, like, Xander's bullshit.
Well, yeah.
So.
Unfortunately, when it comes to Buffy, this is as much of a Cordelia episode as we get, except for the Invisible Girl.
Right, because even the Wish, Cordelia dies, like, super fast in that episode, even though she's the one that launches Anyanka's, Wish.
She's basically, in the Wish, she's basically Marion Crane, so.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, we don't... I love Cordy. Y'all know that, so I always want more Cordy screen time, and, she's become so much more grounded. We'll talk about it next episode, which she has minimal amount to do, but she's so grounded within it, except, anyway. I wanted more Cordy in this episode. I wanted this to be slightly more Cordy's story than Xander's, but I guess in 4 days, what are you going to do?
I also want to know why the Scoobs don't make a deal with the gravediggers in Sunnydale to, right before they bury these corpses. Why don't they pre-stab them? It would save everybody so much trouble.
Because it's a mortuary, right?
Yeah, I mean, not only would it save the Scoobies trouble, in having to fight these vampires, but the gravediggers are going to have to do all of this maintenance for all of these open fucking graves from people who rise up. So why don't you just, make friendly with them and be like, hey, can I stab this, wooden stake into this thing? No harm, no foul, because they're going right into the ground. Nobody's going to know about it.
Right, and, just have some garlic, grow it around all the graves. It'll smell a little funky, but, it'll help you, really.
How much money would you take in order to let a stranger desecrate a body?
In Sunnydale, probably not much, because even though people turn a blind eye, they know something's going on. So it could just become mortuary procedure that you stab someone through the heart while you're before the embalming. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously the gravediggers have to go back and dig the they've got to be overworked because of all of the dead bodies that come through Sunnydale. And then you also have the double duty of having to rebury the plots because of all of the vampires that are crawling out.
Right, at least Sam and Dean on Supernatural rebury their own shit. They don't just leave shit open. They're actually very courteous. Once they dig up a body, they refill the grave. So,
Yeah. Also, I mean, there isn't some sacred grave digger's oath, is there? I mean, it's like, desecrate a body? Sure, whatever. I mean, they're basically just laborers. It's not like they take some kind. It's like, oh yes, we're really concerned about the sanctity of what's going on here.
Listen, when I joined the Gravediggers Labor Union, there was absolutely an oath, and it absolutely precludes letting teenagers stab dead bodies.
I don't know. I mean, but you gotta figure that if anybody knows that something is up in Sunnydale, it's the gravediggers.
Yeah, it's not like you can miss all the mess.
We're always really busy, y'all. Is this normal?
Well,
okay, that's the kind of episode this is.
It really is. Yeah, for sure.
After the credits, we get Buffy with Giles and talking about Angelus on Valentine's Day. Have a sentence, even, is one of my favorite phrases, and one I definitely use when that comes up. And, oh, poor Buffy.
Poor Buffy. Poor Jenny. Got a lot of feelings about the ladies in this episode.
Yeah.
Poor every girl who's forced to chase after Xander without their consent.
Truth. Basically, you feel sorry for everybody except Drusilla.
Well, yeah, because Drew's like, no.
I would chase Xander with a
Well, no, I'm talking about in terms of the ladies.
Oh, the women. Oh, yeah. I'm sitting here imagining chasing Xander with an axe. Yeah, no.
I'm imagining that now, too, and it's delighting me a little bit with this image of Logan just with an axe.
Drew's got her shit on lock. She's not here to fuck around.
If anyone wants to draw fan art of Logan chasing Xander with an axe, we'd be very happy to have you do that.
Yes, please.
Yes, please. Go for it, fans. Please draw Logan chasing after Xander with an axe. We want to see that. But yes, we find out that Angelus does horrible things to show his affection on Valentine's Day. And I'm like, because it's a day that ends in Y. One thing that can be said about Angelus is he's a much better dresser than Angel. He's wearing this very nice kind of textured shirt. I mean, it's not much different than what Angel usually wears, but it's enough that it's like, oh, you made an effort.
And this is the first time you get guy liner.
Well, we got guy liner in the last episode, but this is like the full-on guy liner.
This is like pronounced guy liner. Yeah, I really enjoy a good guy liner, so, you know,
Here's the thing. I've never, ever noticed that on him. Even now, I'm struggling to be like, yeah. And maybe it's just because I always expect David Boreanaz to be wearing eyeliner. Just doesn't register, but I can't bring it up in my mind's eye.
It's extra there. It's definitely there.
Yeah.
But,
now, I mean, like, Angelus definitely has it pretty heavy, and actually Spike, I notice, has it more than he did in the past episodes. So I'm thinking that Spike's like, oh, Angelus is going to do this, I'm going to do this too.
Because clearly if Drew likes guys with, you know, with an eyeliner, I've got to do it to impress Drew. I mean, it's just like the one up and it's adorable.
Drew has good taste.
She does have really good taste in, at least looks-wise, in men. I'm not going to lie there, yeah.
Well, and ladies too, because look who she goes after later on.
True.
Yeah.
So, Harmony, that's the scene we got next, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
she's the worst.
She really
like,
is.
and at this point, and you know, our opinions of Harmony are very much colored by what we know is going to come later, and Mercedes McNabb being like so funny, but at this point, she's just like the worst instead of the funniest worst.
Yeah, I think she's the worst all the time, so.
Yeah,
I do too, but eventually when she becomes a vampire, she becomes like the literal funniest worst, especially when she's over on Angel. At this point, she's just this prop to make Cordy feel bad, yeah,
she's the proto-mean girl, and it's just like, I want to slap all of them. So,
but she's not even Regina George mean girl. She's like the third mean girl, but then she thinks she can take over the Heathers now that Cordy is dating Xander.
She's, what's-her-face's character in Mean Girls? My Father, the Inventor of Toast.
Gretchen.
Yes,
Gretchen.
Yeah, she's Gretchen.
Yeah,
Gretchen.
Yeah, she's like third string, and she wants to be, you know, head bitch in charge, and it's not working.
She's Shannon Doherty's character in Heathers. She's not.
Yeah, when Heather 1 kills herself, so she can take over. So basically, Cordelia is Heather 1, and killing herself is dating Xander.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God.
But is dating Xander worse than death?
Debatable.
Well, considering how many people who date Xander end up dead, like, very soon after, it might be the same thing. It really is.
Yeah, and just like, you know, the whole clique culture makes my brain hurt anyway, but this is just like the worst to me.
I think the best part is when we've got Amy talking to Willow. It's like, are you going to the dance? And Willow's like, my boyfriend's in the band.
Yeah, actually, that's a really sweet scene, and I love the fact that Buffy's like, go on, you know you want to say it.
You want to say it. And Willow's trying not to, like, gush over her, you know, newfound happiness. But Buffy is being supportive, Buffy, and being like, you know, be happy. It's okay.
It's okay. Gush over Oz because it's Oz, so...
Right, even Buffy in the graveyard scene with Xander, she doesn't quite understand why Xander's dating Cordy, but she's not making a big deal about, like, don't talk about your dating life because I'm miserable. She's being, you know, she's being Buffy. Yeah. She's being a friend.
Yeah, and Amy does pick up on why Buffy doesn't want to celebrate Valentine's Day because it's super obvious.
Yeah.
And we do see... Buffy and Joyce home alone with all of this food, which, you know they didn't eat because Buffy has gotten into her twig phase. So.
She's starting to,
Yeah, it gets worse, but this is the downside.
I mean, you can justify that, like, mystically justify that by Buffy can eat whatever she wants and her body burns more calories.
Burns more calories, I've done that in some stories before. But... Joyce, you're the fucking worst. Because you have no reaction to your daughter getting this creepy ass box full of roses with a creepy note that says soon. Like,
I don't know.
Like, not any comment. Like, even if it's not worry, being like, hey, why'd you get a dozen roses?
Flowers?
Yeah.
Right, who are those from?
Right.
Oh, from Willow.
Yeah, I mean, it's considering, what goes on in the next episode, you'd think there might be some correlation between Boxes of Roses and I'm Dating a Boy, but apparently Joyce is living completely in her own head. No.
Also, it's super creepy. Like this big ass black
Majorly
box.
creepy. Yeah.
I every time I watch this episode, I forget that the roses aren't dead because just looking at that box, it looks like the roses should be dead.
Every time I expect them to be dead. Every time I expect them to be organ meat inside something.
I expected them to be black.
But no, they're just, and I think that's what makes it creepier, because it defies expectations, which I think was really well done.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah, Angel's creepy bullshit is really effective in this set of episodes. I mean,
yes.
Yeah, I get the willies with things like that, and that is the effective. It's a small part, but it's a pretty effective part of that. Is just the creepiness.
Yeah, this episode is just a how-to guide dysfunctional relationship edition.
Yes.
Right. I mean, Angel is soulless vampire at this point, so there's definitely no function in any relationship, but yeah.
No. But even before, he would just hang outside our window.
Truth.
Yeah.
But, well, I mean, because you got Xander and Cordy and Jenny and Giles are on the rocks, and they won't talk to each other like adults, and you know what? Willow and Oz are doing fine.
Yes, we do have the wonderful scene in the Bronze where Willow is watching Oz play and is just riveted.
Devin's lip sync is not good.
It is not good. No, it is not.
Devin's lip sync is not good.
I will give them points. I think Seth's guitar miming has gotten slightly better, and they've done a much better job of not letting us watch him play guitar.
Yeah.
If you watch that scene, it's just like, let's shoot this so there are people in front of his guitar at all times.
No, that's smart. I mean, and that's, different directors, whatever. Also, that song, Pain by 4-Star Mary, is so typical of that period's boy, whiny, rock kind of, but not the good stuff. This is not the, high level, good, whiny Nirvana angst. I like it too, but it's very typical of that style of genre of music in the 90s. It's like, I could point to that and say, that is 90s. But yes, Willow is adorable.
I was just going to complain about how they often have Oz, Seth rather, hold a guitar like he's playing a bass.
Yep.
And it drives me crazy. Which is just so nitpicky.
Yeah.
Because I feel like this episode is either a feast or famine of us, going deep into, feminist theory, or just shitting all over it. I think I've settled on the latter, so...
I think we have to take what good parts that we can. And one of them is I Think I'm a Groupie, which, guess what, was the name of a Oz and Willow website back in the day.
Yep, that is definitely... Yes, I remember that one.
So Xander and Cordelia break up 2 seconds after he gives her this really nice necklace, which I have to say, in Xander's defense, is a really shitty thing for Cordy to do.
Yes.
Yeah, the actual breakup right there in the moment, he's mad, he lashes out a little bit, but he's not horrible. I think he's a pretty natural, especially teenage boy reaction to could you do this any other day but Valentine's Day in public?
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty shitty to him. And as much as Xander makes me crazy at times, even Xander does not deserve this at this time. He was actually attempting to be a good boyfriend and to do the right things. And she just, completely, wrecking balls him, so.
Yeah.
Right, but at the same time, you never know any... people wanting to explain and have someone justify a breakup is a huge problem. But in this scene, Xander gets horrible later, and I have all these notes about toxic masculinity. But, he lashes out, he says a couple things, then he leaves. So it's not, I'll give Xander credit right there. That one tiny little ounce of credit.
They really try to make you feel sympathy for Xander in the most awkward way possible by having him walk down the hall and somebody just walk by and going, way to get dumped. Thank you, random extra, for that, scintillating conversation.
It's not...
Have to get a SAG card after that line? Fuck.
Yeah.
That was a good one. Get dumped. Here's the thing. The thing that bothered me about that is their relationship was secret for so long. I find it. I mean, is it Buffy's existence that elevates people's knowledge of Xander? I mean, it always seemed like they tried to play it to where Xander wasn't the kind of person to where anybody would pay attention to whether or not he got dumped. And it was so brief that his and Cordy's relationship was public that it kind of always read kind of awkward that everybody in this school's like.
It's also kind of sudden that their relationship is public. I mean, is there any point where we actually find out how it becomes public? Am I forgetting something?
No, it sort of happens. I mean, the Scoobs all find out, or at least Willow finds out. Like, we never know when Buffy finds out. But Willow finds out in Innocence. And then in the next episode, phases, Xander and Cordelia are getting all snuggly while, comforting Cordy over her broken-ass car. So presumably the relationship is public by then, because they're doing that in the school parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, it is Cordelia, so a spotlight is going to be shown on Xander, even if it's just brief, even if they're only publicly dating for like 2 weeks, because we don't know how long it's been since phases, do we?
I presume it's been like a couple of weeks or so.
Couple of weeks, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's Cordy.
Yeah.
And Cordy, it stands out. So that spotlight then automatically gets shown on Xander. So, I mean, I guess I can just sort of see it that way.
No, I just suppose I was just confused about the timeline as to how long they were, heavy air quotes here, out as a couple.
I mean, it must be super recent, because Harmony starts acting shitty and Cordelia's surprised. So, presumably Harmony's only found out?
Yeah, that's my reasoning as to why everybody else gives a shit. Just as far as how they try to play Xander's character, he's not, but maybe he is. I have no idea. It's so up in the air with how they want him to be, whether they want him to be this nobody or somebody everybody knows. Or
I think that it's because it is Cordelia who's like Little Miss, school, whatever. So even with being with nobody, I mean, the fact that she's with a nobody as compared to, the captain of the football team or some college sophomore or something, I think that would make it even more obvious in terms of Cordelia. Oh my God, look who she's dating. Who is this guy?
Yeah.
So.
Also, I kind of think that, like, Xander has been sort of an object of ridicule most of his life, and it's just I think it's just that I think everyone in school is happy to have something new to torture Xander about.
Probably.
As opposed to, you're just a loser.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, Xander's a nobody the way, like, Jonathan is a nobody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, they know who he is. Everybody, like, has disdain for Xander, but he's kind of like the school, whatever. And I can totally, understand what that's like. So, yeah.
And I think his relationship with, not relationship, but, like, his relationship with Buffy, I mean, I know people don't like her and think things are weird, but at the same time, he's hanging out with, shallowness, teenage shallowness. He's hanging out with a really beautiful, person, and they have a group and they do that, So, yeah. I don't know what the end of that thought was, but.
Yeah, well, I mean, also, like, in season 3, Xander will be really surprised that he does not win Class Clown. So, he certainly believes that he has an elevated status in the school. At this point, he started to hang out with somebody who's in a band. So
yeah, that's true.
True, yeah. I mean, I think there's definitely an evolution of Xander being, a ridiculed nobody to being, people like him well enough. I mean, a ridiculed somebody, and so, and yeah.
We have to start talking about Xander being the worst, because we've only just scratched the surface on this, and this is where it really starts up. Xander grabbing Amy and, blackmailing her to helping him out. And his line, the Hellmouth is going to work for me. I swear to God, like, that is, like, the unseen footage of every single bad guy, like the trio and, Andrew's brother, all of these people who are just like, seriously, like, if Xander had not become Buffy's friend, he would have been a member of the fucking trio.
Oh, totally.
I was about to say the exact same thing, Emcee. The exact same thing. I'm like, absolutely.
I don't think he would have, just because he has no core competence.
That's also
That's true. He doesn't have a skill like the rest of them do.
Well, I was going to say army training, but if he hadn't...
Yeah.
Well, carpentry, he could have built stuff for them.
He could have been their minion.
Yeah, or he could have been their carpenter. He builds stuff, so, they need...
Okay.
But not at that point. He hasn't learned to do any of that stuff
in this
yet.
episode, he does board up a door.
Yeah, so you can see he's kind of got, basic skills already. And, think about, Jonathan and Andrew. Do you really think Andrew knows how to use the hammer at all? I mean, it's just... so I think he would have been their handyman. The handyman of Doom.
Or he might have learned some of that stuff just by the factor of living in Sunnydale, and I don't know. Yeah, I mean...
But he totally would have been part of that crew. No questions asked.
Yeah, seriously, the Hellmouth is going to work for me. Just always sticks out in my head as this is... If Xander was not best friends with the protagonist, he would be the fucking villain. This is villain talk.
Truth.
So it's just the fact that he's blackmailing / extorting her when he sees her do something bad. Instead of saying you shouldn't do that or whatever, he immediately jumps on, how can I make this work for me?
Or telling Giles
and
Buffy that she's doing magic, and so that can be watched out for.
Mm-hmm. No, let me find a way to make it work to my advantage immediately. Not even he doesn't even think about it or go away and then come back. It's just it immediately jumps on that, oh, look what I can get.
Yeah. I also feel like Cordelia is so much of a better person than Xander, because Cordelia obviously likes Xander. I'm still not sure Xander likes Cordelia.
I think he does. I don't know. I kind of don't want to defend Xander in this episode for anything, because he is pretty terrible. But, as much as, the necklace is really crappy and stuff, he's actually trying. And for someone who's never had a girlfriend before, this is getting her the necklace. I mean, yeah, at the point we're at in the episode, everything is going off the rails. But in that instance, it's that's actually a big step for him. Because he's never... I mean, Xander's clearly never had a girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And he doesn't really understand what he's supposed to be doing. And just getting her the gift, even though it's a crappy gift, that's actually a big step for him.
A crappy gift she fucking loves, so...
Yeah,
and she loves
that
the gift.
too.
Yeah, I mean, she does love the gift. Because, Chunky's 90 jewelry, it was in style, so she loves the gift.
Xander is always... He likes Cordelia... in certain ways, but at the beginning of the episode, he's like, we just sat in silence. Man, it was boring.
Yeah, I mean, I think he likes Cordelia, but I also think it's a teenage lust which is perfectly fine when you're teenagers and you're trying to figure out, you're not going to meet your, I mean, some people do, but in this case, at the maturity level of Xander, this is not the person you're going to talk through. I mean, they're 16, 17 years old, so...
And of course, remember, he is coming out of being the, secretary of the I Hate Cordelia Club?
Right.
So, I mean, given all the fact, I think he honestly does like her. I don't think he knows how to express that in any serious way, but I think he does actually like her.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that his first instinct is, I want to cast a love spell to drive her insane, basically.
At that point, that's complete shit. And
that
and
is
the fact of the matter is, I mean,
bullshit.
I kind of feel like the reason they're casting Xander in that light is because without it, there's no episode.
Well, I mean, obviously, you could say that about, everything that these characters do.
Well, no, of course. But, I mean, I think in this case, it was we need an episode in 4 days. Let's come up with this really crappy idea. And Xander, as not a real person, kind of just gets caught in the crossfire.
I've noticed this watching the last couple episodes. Xander's characterization between writers is super inconsistent.
Yes.
I don't think there's a clear...
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this next his... It's not even motivation, it's like his voice, his actual voice.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the only thing making that characterization consistent is Nikki and Nikki's performance. Yeah. Across the board, he's sort of normalizing it, but just looking at dialogue and how his dialogue and how his demeanor changes episode to episode, it's very inconsistent.
Yeah, because he can be, like, incredibly thoughtful, because in the necklace itself, and Cordy's reaction shows that they've moved, I mean, they're still sort of antagonistic towards each other, but at some point, he's gotten to know her well enough to know her taste and know things she would like, and not just impress her. But at the same time, in the care of certain writers, he can be really, really cruel.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
really mean.
Yeah.
Which is frustrating. And they, of course, they settle with his character, and he becomes the Xander we sometimes love, but mostly tolerate. So,
I guess what I'm saying is, I think in this episode, it's like he's really horrible, much more horrible than he usually is, and that's a function of we needed an episode.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from, David.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear. I'm not disagreeing that it's horrible, because it is.
No.
So,
we know that you're the secretary of the I Hate Xander Club.
Yeah. Marty usually writes him better.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Marty and Jane usually write him better and kinder and softer and more thoughtful. But again, it's just... Yeah.
Well, I think one thing that shows that this episode was only written in a couple of days was the massive, absolutely massive research failure when it comes to...
Diana?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I knew that without having to look
Yeah,
it
I
up.
know,
So
right?
did I. Like,
It is
what?
not hard. Like, the goddess of love, I mean, that is, like, the goddess of love is one of the most fucking, like, obvious, like, I mean, basically... Iconic, yes, that is the word I am looking for. Basically, like, the...
Diana's a virgin goddess.
I know, right?
Yeah, she's the goddess of the hunt. She's a perpetual virgin. She kills men or turns them into stags and shit when they go after her or see her in the bath. How do you not know this? It's not that hard.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've seen so many people use it as headcanon that Amy, like, made the mistake and that's why the spell, like, goes, like, all messed up, which does work, but the thing is, the writers were not fucking intending that. They were not. They just fucked up.
No,
in fact, they actually give an in-episode reason why the spell went wrong. Is that the necklace protected Cordy.
That doesn't explain why... Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't explain why it's all stupid anyway. But,
it all is really stupid, but seriously, fucking Diana.
Yeah, no, that...
Yeah.
I know. And that's always bothered me. And again, I don't even have to look that up. It's just something I know off the top of my head because, I don't know, we did some mythology stuff in like 5th and 6th grade.
So
It's just one of those...
Make a counter argument, like, okay, but who is she in Greek mythology? And I was like, it's Artemis. There's no...
Yeah.
It's Artemis. Yeah, it's
And I mean,
The
like,
races are the same. Their
she's
aspects
virgin.
are the same. She is never going to be a love goddess.
yeah, and I mean, when you're talking about goddess of love, it's Venus or Aphrodite, and Venus and Aphrodite are like the most famous goddess, like in Greek and Roman mythology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
not like they pulled out Hathor or some, or Astarte or some other pantheon. It's like, it's Greco-Roman. How do you not know Venus?
Yeah, and
Truth.
and of course later for every other spell, could they not find someone other than Hecate to?
Right.
It's like could you have someone else like in Amy's spells?
I mean, at least Hecate is a magical, like, is one of the goddesses of magic and stuff. So at least that's like, I mean, in paganism, which this is not, this is full on witchcraft, magical shooty out of your eyes witchcraft,
That's how we're referring to it from now on.
Yeah. But shooty out of your eyes witchcraft. But at least in pagan culture, a lot of people choose a personal deity, for their worship and their altar. So I could see Amy repeatedly using Hecate as her personal, deity. But the Diana thing, fuck you, Marty. I don't even know what to do with you.
I would have known that at the age of 7. And, you know, there was an internet at that point. She could have looked it up even then. So, it's not like it's some obscure thing that would have taken more than 5 minutes to look up if she didn't know.
Yeah. I want to note something about Amy. You know, she makes a big deal about how, you know, there can't be any bad intent.
Yes.
With the spell. But the fact is, like, Amy's the incident that makes Xander realize that Amy's practicing witchcraft, it's like she's doing very selfish things. And then when she says, like, when she first, like, when Xander, like, takes her aside and tells him what she wants to do, she's like, oh, that's really dangerous. It's like, but within, like, 15, 20 seconds, she's, like, thinking how we can do this. And, like, I think this is the first sign of Amy kind of going off the rails that we will say. But it's like, you know, she makes this sort of, you know, pro forma comment about how, oh, this is dangerous, or we have to do this, and then she's just like, oh, okay.
She Willy Wonka's him. She's like, no, don't. Stop.
It's like you say bad intent. It's like, I'm sorry, this is a spell which is making somebody love you without their consent. And, you know, if you read anything about witchcraft or, you know, magic of any sort, I mean, that's like the biggest no-no. That's the first, like, you know, do not do anything to somebody against their consent. Love spells are bad unless you're like saying, I'm throwing myself out into the world and, you know, let love come to me, and whoever it is, you know, maybe they'll find me attractive, not focusing in on somebody saying, I will make you love me. That is like the worst. So
Amy, this is her second of, I think, 3 appearances before she goes off the rails, because the next time we see her, she turns herself into a rat, and then she's a rat for like a bunch of years, and then when she comes back, she's like full on magic junkie. Which we'll get into that, believe me.
Yeah,
in several years.
We will.
But yeah,
so don't spend years as a rat. It's not good for you.
Well, no, I mean, like, I'm just saying that at this time, it would not surprise me if Amy wasn't already going to rack.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. So Amy is not, obviously. The Madison family is pretty disturbed in terms of magic. Mm-hmm. They just need
the addiction runs in the family, man.
Yes.
That's what it is.
But yes, we have the love spell is cast, and Xander goes up to Cordy and is being really creepy. Trying to, like, figure out if the spell has worked. And she just shuts him down right away, and instead we find out that the spell has worked on Buffy. And Xander was full on gonna make out, like, you can see him figuring out what's going on, that the love spell has worked on Buffy rather than Cordelia, and he was full on gonna make out with Buffy.
Yeah, you can see, like, he wants it so badly, and I just want to.
He genuinely, for a second, thinks that Buffy wants.
I just want to.
I mean, I would make out with Buffy, so okay.
Not if she were drunk.
Not drunk, but at this point, when she's being all, I've just been thinking about, you know, he doesn't.
No, I think Xander
right.
has already started, like, the wheels are turning in his head, and that he's already figured out that the spell has worked on Buffy rather than Cordelia. So, like, him going to make out with Buffy is, like, Xander, like, because, I mean, like, he gets props at the end of this episode for not.
You don't get a cookie for basic human decency.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you don't get a pat on the head because you actually understood what consent meant. That should be like the default setting, asshole. Yeah.
And I feel like
Xander, thanks for not raving me.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
You're a pip guy.
Right. I will say though, like, it's so problematic, but the minute the spell starts working, it gets so funny.
They do it.
Like, so the whole time I kept thinking I would love to have seen the outtakes of this episode, because I know what it's like to be cast opposite, like, your best friend, your closest, and just break up every time you go in for the sexy. You know what I mean? These guys have been working together for, like, you know, a good year, 2 years now, and, like, all I could think about is, like, how many bloopers like when Buffy has to get sexy, you know, when Sarah has to get sexy with Nikki, and Rabia has to get sexy with, you know what I mean, and Christine and all those, like, I just thought they probably laughed a lot. So that was probably fun.
This is Nikki's favorite episode, and he
Of course.
did say that they all had trouble not laughing during the seduction scenes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, and Nikki is, his comic timing is, that's why that back half of this episode is awful as it is, and consent and all those issues. There's that, you know, 1930s slapstick comedy kind of aspect, and Nikki plays that energy incredibly well.
And there's a lot of chemistry, I think, between Nikki and like every single
him and
woman.
everybody.
Yeah, it works really well, except for the content, which makes me want to like bash my head.
Yeah, the
into
content is awful. The performances are hilarious.
Yeah, it's really, really good.
Like
comedy.
Jenny's little, when Giles drags Jenny away, and she's like, you know, it's awful, but it's
There's
well
some
played.
stuff that's very funny, but there's some stuff that I'm very uncomfortable with.
And the Willow stuff I'm 100% uncomfortable with.
I am, one thing that makes me really angry about this episode is Giles gets angry at Xander. But Giles is actually way too easy on Xander. Because what Xander did was fucking evil.
It was evil and it was dangerous, and if anybody would know, it would be Giles. And do you think maybe that's why he gave him sort of a pass? Like, okay, you know now.
And do we think that like Ripper pulled this kind of shit in some way or another to get girls into bed?
Well,
I do.
Well, I mean, like, the thing is, that's all headcanon. So, like I'm not going to, like, you know, hypothesize as, I mean, because frankly, I think Ripper could probably get girls without fucking love spells.
I'm sorry, have you seen him? Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, Ripper still might have gotten turned down and decided he was going to like go get some woman who turned him down via magic. But whatever,
well, it's always possible. But I mean, it's not just that. But I mean, it's Xander's done something evil, and there's a dangerous situation going on, and Xander and Giles is just like, "Oh, go away," and basically, he doesn't know what Xander's gonna fucking do, because Xander goes home and Willow's in his fucking bed, practically naked.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking also there's a little bit of hypocrisy, because like later on Giles gets really hung up about Willow using magic, but when Xander does it, it's like, oh yeah, you're a bad boy, and kind of like
boys will be boys.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to think, is this the only instance of love potions that we have?
Well, there's the love spell in, what is it? Is Love's Bitch or whatever, Lover's Walk, whatever. There's where I don't know.
Oh, well, they never actually cast it, and I guess him does have a love spell.
That's actually kind of what I wanted to talk about. Is this spell? I mean, would you argue we're going to go into sort of theoretics here? But would the spell be similar to what is on the jacket in him?
I mean, it's close. I mean, I feel like maybe the jacket was enchanted with a very similar type of spell, because it seems like,
I mean, bazooka.
Yeah, all of the women who, like, witness the jacket fall in love with whoever's wearing it.
And then they go
nuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, Giles points out that love spells are not about love; they're about obsession.
Yes,
right, and they're powerplay.
And it seems like that may be true just across the board. And so when we get to the jacket, and don't make me think about that now, because that is the episode I hate most in this entire series. But I haven't watched it in a while. Maybe I'll change my mind.
Probably not. It's not solid.
But it's just, I mean, Giles makes that point, and it's just like, just in magic, it seems like, love spells are not about love. Yeah. That's just not. It's about obsession, and that's why they're leaving aside why they're terrible, but why they're dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, unchecked, like, magically boosted obsession obviously never goes well.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we see here. And it's,
I will admit, one of my favorite parts of the episode was when Xander locks the door with the card catalog, and of course it.
Oh, and he does it the wrong way.
And the thing I noticed is that there's a fucking lock on the door.
Oh, is
Xander
there?
doesn't even bother locking the door. He just tries to barricade it. He barricades it wrong.
what I love about that is it actually is this, like, it's essentially, that gag is actually stolen. Well, not stolen, and I have no idea if they've even seen this, but it's the same as a gag in an early Buster Keaton short.
That wouldn't surprise me.
Like, that exact same gag.
I think many people have used that gag. Because it's a good gag.
Yeah.
It's a good gag.
Xander turning down Buffy. She does look really hot.
Okay, I'm gonna objectify Sarah right now. She has fabulous
She does.
legs.
Yeah.
I was feeling Buffy in that outfit.
I'm not even normally like,
No
Sarah.
lie.
So I'm not really into Sarah at all that way. But let me tell you, she was really hot there. Yes,
Yeah.
I felt it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Sarah, for objectifying you. You are a lovely human being. Man, you look good.
I'm incredibly amused right now because, like, you guys are like, I'm objectifying Sarah, she looks great, and I am, like, the last person to ever, like, do, like, fashion on this on this podcast, but I'm like, my thing was like, it's a really nice raincoat. And it's like, I mean, like, yeah, Sarah looks great, but it's like, that's actually very stylish, nice looking
It is,
raincoat.
yeah.
And it's like, and
it's
she should wear that more
satin was
often when
huge
she's
in the
wearing
90s.
clothing
Yeah.
under it. And but I don't think we ever see it again, which is
No,
a
we
shame.
don't. Yeah.
You know, David, we objectify people more on this show than we ever have. Like, you're not, like, we're just like, Oz is, David Skyline, and you're like, I like that coat.
I do. Yeah, it's just like, I know I'm supposed to just like be doing like, wow, Sarah's so sexy. It's like, and she is, but it's like, oh, that's a really nice coat.
I think she plays that scene really well too.
She does.
Yes.
Yeah,
She does. It's
you know,
really, it's
as
great.
much as I hate this episode and everything about it, just the fact that she, like, the way she comes on to him and stuff, it's just a really, really nice scene.
I feel that this is an episode that ironically, like, the material is so awful, but, like, so much good work is put into the service of this episode. So as we've been saying, like, all the performances are really good, and it's really well directed. I particularly like the scene where Xander comes back to school, and it's the slow-mo with the, the wah pedal on the music, and
the Average White Band song?
Yeah.
Average White Band got the love.
Yeah, and he's walking down, and all the girl, and none of the extras, like, go all coarse acting and blow it.
Yeah, the slow-mo Average White Band shot is really, it's quite funny, yeah.
I mean, that whole scene is just, because the way it's like, it's well cut, like, you start on Xander's shoes, and then you, like, cut back to, I forget if it's to him and then to the people watching him, and, like, the cutting back. That's a really well-directed scene.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they did get some good extras, because, I mean, you could see, like, the hunger on the face of all of the girls,
Yeah.
and, like, the guys looked confused.
Yeah.
Of course, part of me, like, I know shouldn't be thinking about this kind of stuff, but it's like, would this spell affect like, how is Larry feeling right now?
Where's Larry?
I have to admit, I did actually write that fanfic back in the day.
I know you did. You love Xander and Larry. You do.
I do love Xander and Larry.
I know you love Xander and Larry, so that does not surprise me that teenage you wrote.
And I mean, we do get into that a little bit in him when you have Willow, like, lusting after RJ.
Willow,
of course,
right.
All of the issues with Willow. But yeah, like, how do these spells work? Do these spells recognize trans people? There's just so many questions.
Well, if they're a woman,
Yeah.
then
I
yes.
have all kinds of problems with trying to figure out how these spells work.
No,
It's...
I mean, also, no one was thinking about that. You might get a show now that would explain that magic a little bit more.
No.
But at the time, like, besides Larry, there's no, and Willow later, there's not a lot of thought about nuanced portrayals of queer people.
Yeah, it's like, I wrote an essay on a Star Trek The Next Generation episode with pheromones, where everybody was attracted to this one character because alien pheromones. And I actually raised that in my essay too, because it's like, you only see heterosexual, men reacting to her as compared to anybody else. It's like, yeah, nobody ever thinks about that. And it's frustrating because how do these things work and why can't we find out more?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, the mechanics are always troublesome. I mean, my note was, the necklace. Xander took it back from Cordy. He ungifted to her. Does that mean it's still something of hers?
Good question.
I mean, like, if you really get into the mechanics of the magic, you're just like, what the hell is going on here? I have no idea anymore.
Yeah, but that's the mechanics of the magic in every
of course.
episode. It's Shooty Eye-Beam
Right,
Magic.
no, exactly. And
Trademark
I'm glad
Andie.
you came up with that term, because we needed a term.
Yeah.
We do have Xander turning down Buffy, and this is what Xander gets his cookie for at the end of the episode. But if you actually listen to what Xander is saying, turning down Buffy, it has nothing to do with protecting Buffy. It has everything to do with, this doesn't mean anything to you, but it would mean something to me, and I need to protect it. Basically, Xander's just trying to protect himself. And it's total bullshit.
Oh, he's the worst.
Yeah, Xander is like one of the most selfish assholes on this show. I mean, let's just face it. He is totally like me. It's all about what I want and what I need.
But the writers think he's adorably funny
Right.
sidekick. Like, the writers don't understand how bad they're making this man.
And the fact that a woman wrote this makes me even angrier because, I mean, if it's like Joss wrote it or some random guy wrote it, you might say, okay, they just don't get it. But a woman wrote this. She should have gotten some of it.
Joss writes Xander better than that sometimes, so...
I actually feel that Joss did a lot of writing on this that was uncredited.
I'm pretty sure, too.
I mean, honestly, the only cookie I give Xander once the spell goes into play is that he's actually quite protective of Cordy.
Yeah, when he rescues Cordelia,
he jumps into a mass of women who he knows are, like, violent, and, like, picks Cordy up and drags her out of that.
Yes.
And he puts himself at risk to protect Cordy.
But that's almost like the payoff of, see, he really is a good guy because...
He really is a good guy. He gets rewarded with Cordy.
But those actions are actually admirable.
Before we get to that scene, we do have what is probably the best scene of this episode, and that is Oz punching Xander.
Squeeze!
Oh my god, it's great!
Yeah.
And the greatest thing about it is his motivation. It's not because the woman he loves is, like, freaking out over her best friend. It's because he upset her.
Yeah.
And I find that so incredibly endearing.
Yep. And he looks
really
so
is
confused.
Yeah, he's not like, stay away from my woman.
Oz doesn't even know entirely what happened.
No. He just knows that Willow is incredibly upset that she, like, threw herself at Xander and got shut down, and he's just like, this is nonsense.
I also think it's really sweet that even though Willow is under a love spell, she feels she can still talk to Oz.
Talk to Oz.
Because he's Oz.
For sure.
Yeah, and Oz, once he punches Xander, looks confused. Because he's never punched anyone before, and he doesn't understand what this is like.
And then he helps Xander up.
Yeah.
Right, he's like, that kind of hurt. Like, that's all he's like.
Which is so Oz.
That's an experience. It is. He's perfect.
I am not surprised that Willow is the first person to try and kill Xander.
Yeah, this is like an early clue to the new
and,
direction of Willow, you know?
Well, and Buffy makes such a relevant point at the end with Xander. She's like, she actually loves you. The other people were just obsessed with you because of a spell. Like, how much worse is that for Willow? It's because she really, she's with Oz now and they've come to terms with their friendship, but, like, she's loved him her whole life.
While it's horrible that Buffy was turned into a rat, it's a really good thing that Buffy was turned into a rat, because could you imagine if, like, obsessive Slayer
strength?
Oh my god. Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, things would have been bad. And we have Oz and Giles being the only productive scoops.
they had cast a spell on Angelus, well, on Buffy, with Angelus, she would have knocked him out a long time before. Sorry, weaponized love spells, not a good thing. Not a thing.
Why not? Why aren't weaponized love spells a good thing?
But speaking of the whole, Slayer strength thing, it's like, she whacks Amy.
She does.
And that sound effect sounds like she smashes Amy's face in. I am really surprised Amy just has a slightly bloody nose.
Well, later on, Xander's thrown off the roof of Buffy's house. I mean, granted, it's only the first story, but still.
Right.
He should be pretty badly hurt.
Okay. We do sort of see what it would be like if Buffy were not a rat with Drusilla, as far as
that is true.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very true. And you know what? A lot of my friends have watched Buffy over the years. They're not as obsessed with it as I am or my co-hosts. But your face is like a poem. I can read it. It's like my favorite thing to do to friends is consensually touch their faces.
I kind of want to look up to see if anybody wrote an AU fanfic where Drusilla did turn Xander into a vampire.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sure.
And having that break the spell because then Xander dies, but have Drusilla still be in love with him. So I kind of want to read Drusilla and Xander where Drusilla's just love spell obsessed, and meanwhile Angelus and Spike are like, what the fuck is going on?
And Spike are like, what the fuck? Now Xander's a vampire? Because Xander's a mean-ass fucking vampire, so...
If I can't find it, I might have to write it.
Speaking of alternate universe vampires, when Willow turns up in Xander's bed and tries coming on to him, there's a point where he's like, I don't want to use force, and she goes, force would be okay. And I'm like, is this our first sign of Doppel Willow?
She's just a kinky bitch. It's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's kinky, regardless of whether she's a vampire or not. I'm pretty sure Willow's
Well, yeah,
kinky.
but
That's
this
fine.
is like the first time she does, like, she's kinky, but she doesn't normally express
She
that.
doesn't want to
Because
admit
even
she's
when
kinky.
she sees Doppel Willow,
The Wish and
No, it's not
Doppelganger.
Doppelgangland.
in
Doppelgangland.
Doppelgangland, because actual Willow sees Doppel Willow, and she's like, "Oh, she's such a skank." And by
And I
Willow's
think I'm kinda
usual
gay.
standards, this is not normal.
Yeah, well, they also, I think that's the episode where Willow makes the joke about me and Oz play Mistress of Pain every night.
And you're like,
Yeah.
you totally do.
They have the chains
Got
already.
the chains. There we go.
Yeah. That was another fanfic.
That was many fanfics.
A billion
That
of
was
them
many
back in
of
the day.
my fanfics.
So I think we're getting close.
Yeah.
We are,
To the end?
I think we've got a crowd full of girls chasing after Xander and Cordelia
Yes.
into the basement, and Cordelia finds out that the love spell was supposed to be on her, and geez, it's a good thing that Cordelia didn't find out the actual motivation behind the spell.
Oh yeah.
Right though.
Yeah, because I mean, if I were Cordelia and I found out, I would kill him. I mean, I would just be like, okay, Willow, have at him, because you know what? I'm done.
Yeah,
So-
well, I mean, Cordelia is taking it from a very romantic perspective. She's not, actually thinking it through. I mean, granted,
Right.
we know that it's not romantic, that love spells are, not good, but Cordelia's like, oh, this is so sweet. But Xander wanted revenge on her.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
I
sweet
know.
at all. Yeah.
No.
I also think this is
Interesting.
the first time we've seen Buffy's house get ravaged.
Yeah. Well, no,
Bug
Bug
Guy
Guy
didn't destroy things.
Ravage is just they ended up in the
Yeah.
basement.
Yeah,
again.
no,
it's like
it's
their
like
place
yeah.
to do
Cordy and Xander just
their
wind up in
freaking
Buffy's basement
Nick
all
and
the time
Nora
for some reason.
dialogue. Yeah, you know.
It's
Yeah.
I have to say, yeah, it is, and it is it's good that Cordy doesn't know why Xander actually did this.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's not good, but it's probably it's good for the story, I
Yeah.
suppose, because otherwise we wind up in a weird place. But just narratively, but the thing I do like about how this resolves is that Cordy just stands up to Harmony and everybody and says, "Fuck you. I'm cooler than all of you, and I am doing what I want. Which I think is, good for Cordy's arc, because she's always been part of the crowd, even though she was the leader of the crowd.
Yeah, it's development on her part, for sure.
Yeah, well, this is why I'm saying that Cordelia, even though she's not in this a lot, she's the real hero of this episode, because she's the one who gets character arc. She started the episode in one place, and she finishes the episode in another place, and has, grown as a person. Meanwhile, Xander, what? Like, nothing changes.
So
shrunk as a person. Yeah.
He learns there's no consequences for his actions because his friends are just gonna give him cookies for not raping them.
He's gonna get a pass, right? Willow's gonna have the same. So can we talk about Oz's hunt for Buffy the Rat for just
that is wonderful. That is
it is so free. And even though they have this tiny short scene, I always wish that Sarah and Seth had more scenes together. Because they have such a... they knew each other for years. Like, it's so... Like, I follow Sarah on Instagram, and she often has these really cute posts of her and Seth just, having dinner with their spouses, and it's just really cute. And River wanted me to make sure that this got mentioned. My cat. So when the black cat screeched, she hackled up, and her tail went bushy, and she ran out of the room. So she just wanted you to know that it was very scary, but the only black cat that is relevant to any discussion of Buffy is her.
Well, yeah.
She wanted you guys. She made sure I wrote it. But our little podcast cat, River.
Okay, so does anybody have any last thoughts on this episode?
Yes. Xander does not learn his lesson about fucking around with magic, as we will learn in Once More with Feeling.
True, and it just shits on everybody but him. He gets out of that straight.
I know. Willow, same thing. And Xander and Willow, best friends their whole life, right? There's got to be a certain amount of like attracts like influence, because Willow's consequences for magic, same thing.
Well, she did lose a lot. But we'll talk about it later. I do want to talk about the little piece of score when Xander and Cordy are walking away, sort of triumphantly.
Yes,
I really like that little piece of music.
It's very
really
nice.
Lovely.
Yeah.
I really like the costume design there too, because they're very
I noticed that. I was like, oh my god, they're dressed the same.
Their outfits are very complimentary, and their outfits haven't been as complimentary through the rest of the episode, and it's just a nice little piece of go costume designer for doing that. But yeah, this is a super problematic episode with a lot of really great comedy performances.
Yeah, and I do love Cordelia in this. I mean, despite the problems with it, I just think at the end, I'm just so proud of her saying, you know what, fuck you. You're the sheep. I'll go do what I want, and I'll date who I want, and even if he's a loser. And I mean, it's so corny, but it's beautiful. She's the only redeeming factor out of all this, except for the comedy bits and the chemistry bits between the actors themselves. So.
So last bits of trivia for music. We have Pain, played by 4-Star Mary, a.k.a. Dingoes Ain't My Baby. Drift Away by Naked, from when Cordelia and Xander break up. And Got the Love by the Average White Band, from when Xander was walking down the hall.
Got the love.
So I think that brings us to the end of this episode. Very problematic, but still funny. Probably not a lot of people's favorite. And next week, we have something that is probably the exact opposite of that. Something that is very good, not funny, and a lot of people's favorite. We'll be reviewing Passion.
Do you think that very problematic but funny is tattooed across Joss's ass?
I don't want to think about Joss's ass.
No, me neither.
Fine.
I never want to. They never mention Joss's ass.
And on that note, arg.
Sweet dreams, everybody.
Arg.
Arg.
Grr.
We'd like to thank everyone who downloaded the podcast, and an extra special thanks to everyone who shared, liked, and subscribed on social media. If you'd like your questions or comments read on the show, you can contact us on our website, returntothehellmouth.com, on YouTube at Return to the Hellmouth, on Tumblr and Facebook at Return to the Hellmouth, on Twitter at HellmouthReturn, or on email at returntothehellmouth@gmail.com. We'll be sure to read your comments on the show. Be sure to rate our show at iTunes and Stitcher, and check out our show merchandise on TeePublic and Redbubble. See you on Tuesday for Passion.
Grr, arg.